All right, folks. So I've slept on it, thought about it, sat on it, and I don't think that could have gone any worse than it did. Nico Iamaleava's debut. Wow.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this special edition of the Locked On UCLA Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. And there's no way to mince words. UCLA struggled, and it was rough. It was awful. And I sat there in the heat of the moment thinking, is there a way to sugarcoat this? Try my best. Maybe it was, drinking all the energy drinks they're getting outside the Rose Bowl. Maybe it was the sugary soda I drank before the podcast. Maybe it was the sugary freeze drink that I had. And I was like, all right, let's try and hope that there's some way to spin this. And I've sat, terrible night's sleep, I might add. Woke up, rough, everything hurting, my soul, put it all together. And I've come to the conclusion that it's even more embarrassing than it was at midnight, 11:45, August 30th to midnight, August 31st. All right, more embarrassing. The flop that was the debut of Nico Iamaleava. Now, there's two things we have to discuss here, right? There is the thought that, did Nico play horrific? Well, if you're going to go over the laundry list of UCLA quarterback debuts over the last 2 decades, you can find some utter stinkers. You can find some games where there's UCLA quarterbacks who were awful. So if you're thinking back, and if you're not a UCLA fan, you're watching this, you're hating on Nico, this is where it comes from the UCLA fans' perspective. We've seen Kevin Kraft go out there and throw 4 picks on opening night in the Rick Neuheisel debut. You've had the likes of Dante Moore in his collegiate debut, who did decent but threw a pick and then had a stretch of 6 picks, 3 straight games with pick sixes. You had Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who in his first game as the unquestioned starter in 2019, we're not including when he came in for the injured Wilton Spate in 2018. In 2019, when he's the unquestioned starter, 2 picks. Ethan Garbers, when he was supposed to be the leading QB starter potential in 2023, like when he was competing with Dante, he threw 2 picks. And you're like, dude. So if you're like, wow, was this the worst quarterback performance UCLA's had in recent memory? Absolutely not. They had way worse. Way, way worse. With all the hype, the hope, the special Deshaun Foster teasing that the fact that they went after Nico is because Joey Aguilar was not as strong with his film room work ethic when the Bruins made the switch. It's rough. Now, did Nico have a rough stat line? Absolutely. 50% completion percentage, a touchdown, a pick, everything, The last time UCLA played Utah, the Bruins couldn't even move the ball at all. The Bruins hardly moved the needle when it came to moving the football down the field. What UCLA needed was literally Superman. And Nico did his best. Kyle Whittingham did his best in the pre-game lead-up, the build-up to the game to calm Cam Newton, to do all the best things, to talk about how we can run the ball. And there are some impressive things I saw from Nico, but not in 100% A grade in week 1. No. What Nico needed to do was to be every player on the field, tackle and that's not what he was going to do. He needed to throw for 300 yards. And I think the way Nico's performance could be summed up is similar to how you could sum up Josh Rosen's career. The first pass that he threw was a swing and a miss, kind of, when he threw the bomb and it was dropped in the Virginia game. That's the Josh Rosen game in 2015. Difference from Brett Hundley, who went out there, took that carry and ran it for a touchdown against Rice. And we saw some fun with UCLA. Josh Rosen, a swing and a miss. For Nico Iamaleava, he had a wide open Mikey Matthews and missed him for a touchdown, and the Bruins could have potentially had a brief lead, or something could have changed in that game if they connect. And you're like, dude, what happened? And to feel the intensity, if you're going to scrutinize the decision for Nico to come to UCLA, there's either it's a financial aspect, okay, Well, at UCLA, you're going to make less because of taxes. You're going to make less because the $1.2 million reported by P. Nikos. Is that even similar to what he could have gotten to Tennessee? Not even what he was asking for, but what he could have gotten in state at Tennessee with way less taxes. No chance. It would have made more at Tennessee. And then if you're talking about, the rumors from, his inner circle, and we know what that means, Nico's inner circle, the fact that UCLA was going to have a better offense and a better, potential offensive line. And the hope is with better play calling, Tino Sunseri is a much better play caller than Eric Bieniemy, all right? There are some positive facts in the offense. Now, did it all work out in week 1? No. Was I a little airheaded, if you will, thinking that maybe in a few short months' time, a transformation can go from a couple of overthrows to the like that Nico could master the offense by week 1? Sure, certainly. Idiotic man right here. Look at me. I'm right here. But goodness gracious, could you have imagined how thin the crowd was at the Rose Bowl? How it went just, you're down 20-0. Not even the fact that UCLA could have kept it a game for longer than 5 minutes. No, they're down 6-0. And the highlight in maybe the first quarter was the fact that Utah missed an extra point. All right. Like that was the highlight. And then it felt like they're running up the score. They weren't running up the score, but it kind of felt like that when they had to go for 2 and put up big points against UCLA late in that game. And now Nico's pick didn't come until UCLA was trailing by like 30 plus points, but it was just a lot that was left to be desired for the UCLA Bruins and Nico. Absolutely frustrating. 50% completion percentage. You're playing behind an O-line that couldn't protect, and now there were a couple players out for UCLA. It's not going to change what would have happened week 1. 43-10, a brutal beatdown at the hands of the Utah Utes. We're not even touching on the defense today. This is not even on the defense. I gave Nico a 6th grade, and I think Nico did as much as he could. Had heart, he fought. He was running through. If you saw the video, potentially on social media, was literally limping home from the beating UCLA took from the Utah Utes last night. So it's not like he quit on the Bruins. It's not like he didn't play hard. He put his heart out there in his home of Southern California in the Rose Bowl. And it still was not anywhere near enough to allow UCLA to compete against a Utah Utes team that was preparing for this type of game for a year, right? They've been preparing for this since they choked against BYU, preparing for this since the rough start. Since they could realize they can move on from Cam Rising and have a new start, UCLA tried to give Nico that. Nope. Absolutely frustrating. The fact that, maybe the O-line could have been revamped. No. This all goes back to Chip, but in the end, all the eyes right now are going to be on Nico. And his 6th grade was me being optimistic and saying, hey, there were plays that he made that just about most quarterbacks can't make. Now, was he a superhuman at a 50% completion percentage, less than 200 yards passing, a touchdown and an interception? Those aren't superhuman numbers. Those aren't leading your team and willing them into excitement. Because if you're like, was the game a win, right? Deshaun Foster has been quoted in the offseason. Winning is what matters, not the marketing, the lack of media allowed into practice. It's winning that matters. He comes out. Does UCLA win? No. All right. Major loss because the Bruins needed some type of hype. They need something to go their way to prove to the fan base that this Nico shenanigans, it was going to be worth it. That Deshaun Foster staying to year 3 and beyond is going to be worth it. So the win didn't happen. Well, were they at least exciting? Well, down 20-0? No. That was not the case. Did Nico at least have a good game, right? Was it everything? I take a different perspective because I feel like with the way he was able to run the ball and did his best to extend plays, broken plays. But if we're really looking at it, now that I've kind of woken up, what difference is this between end of season Ethan Garbers and an Eric Bieniemy offense with a UCLA team that couldn't run the ball, right? What's the difference between what Garbers was doing running the ball, similar numbers, to what Nico had to do last night? Now, a little different, a little stronger, a little faster as Nico, a lot more hype than obviously Garbers, but it's really kind of the same thing, and UCLA still got blown out. So ugly, didn't win, numbers weren't there, and it wasn't exciting. A major L for UCLA game 1. Now, on a positive note, the rest of the schedule, outside of a couple, is not Utah. Other than Penn State, other than Ohio State, it's not Utah. UCLA, by the time they have a next big test coming around, they have UNLV. They have New Mexico, Northwestern, and then Penn State, with 3 games and a bye mixed in before the next big name opponent that has a top 5 next to their team name, right? Next to the university. I'm not sure where Penn State will be by the time they come in October, but the 4-0 pipe dream is gone. Nowhere to be found. Now, can Nico resurrect this season? And could it be just, week 1 and it was rough? Absolutely. It's just absolutely frustrating with how it played out. And the hope, the dream, the buildup, and just get absolutely punched in the gut. And you're like, oh, it hurts. It does. Nico's literally limping off the field. But, the scrutiny that's going to come from here, us, the podcast, from myself, although I was hoping would come out of it with a UCLA win, for what Nico and all that coming out from Tennessee, it's going to be heavily scrutinized. And yet, here we are, frustrated with how it turned out. Obviously, a flop. Now, it's not all on Nico, because it's not like he can go out there and stop guys on defense when your defense is literally giving up a touchdown drive after touchdown drive after touchdown drive after touchdown drive, and you get the point. Just frustrating that literally nothing went right. There were positive aspects. If you're looking from the lowest points of 2024 to week 1 of 2025, there were upticks. Now, it didn't come in a win. It didn't come in the majority of the game, but there were subtle things that show potential that UCLA can hopefully improve upon later in the year. Now, it doesn't just, clean up the wounds the Bruins suffered in this beatdown to the Utah Utes, but the subtle things means that week 1 wasn't a victory, but hopefully by week 4, week 5, it will be. But now it's, utter flop. Utter garbage flop. And you go through social media, all you're going to see is flop, flop, flop. Yeah, cautionary tale, cautionary tale, cautionary tale. Oh, look at the overthrow. We've seen that. And, I hope week 1, it was certainly won by the Tennessee Volunteers and Joey Aguilar and their numbers they put up against Syracuse. But by the time week 5, week 6, week 7 rolls around, if the Bruins are humming, maybe the story flips, the narrative, the script changes. But if it doesn't, this could be arguably one of the most embarrassing seasons for UCLA all time, if nothing turns around. Now, they got UNLV. They have New Mexico. Numbers will be coming up for Nico, pumping it up against a UNLV team that has been able to stop Sam Houston State or even the likes of Idaho State. And then you throw in New Mexico. I think UCLA can hopefully put up numbers against New Mexico. You go to Northwestern, certainly a winnable game 1 of your Big Ten slate, even on the road, with a bye in there. But if UCLA is 2-2, 1-3, yikes. Hot seat coming. I don't think that's the case. But if UCLA doesn't turn around, it could be embarrassing real quick. And that's how the start of 2024 was. There are subtle changes UCLA made in the back half to become a competitive team in the second half of 2024. The hope is that UCLA can go on a strong run to start this year, because the schedule is much easier in the first half to the middle of October. After the middle of October, it gets even more challenging, bigger rivalries, teams you've already faced, and there'll be a lot more tape on you and Nico and Tino's offense. Okay? Could this be a flop of all flops? It's not the worst UCLA quarterback performance ever. No, absolutely not. It's not even the worst UCLA debut. Is it the most disappointing? After some sleep or lack thereof and some more thought, some further analysis, it is one of the most disappointing performances we've seen out of a debut QB for UCLA. Is it the worst? No. By far, no. Go look at Kevin Kraft in 2008. Go look at Ethan Garbers or Dante Moore or other quarterbacks in their first games, or DTR in their first games as unquestioned starters against very bad teams, or teams that are nowhere near the caliber of this Utah team. Clearly, nowhere near. And UCLA looked way worse under Chip Kelly or Jim Moore in different years, or Rick Neuheisel. Now, the hope is by week 2, there's a lot more promise. They better go put up numbers against UNLV. If they don't, throw in the towel, give me a time machine, put me in like some ice chamber, make me sleep, and then I'll wake up and hopefully it'll be November 2025, right? Like I want to wake up and be like, wait a minute, let's skip 2 months and go exactly to November. or late October when there's exhibitions, right? Skip those 2 months. Because if it's bad week 2, I'm going to take a long nap and wake up in November 3rd when UCLA plays their home opener in the men's basketball slate. And the women's basketball slate, for that matter, too. Otherwise, it might be a long football season. That's why I'm going to be here, Locked On UCLA. We're going to detail the ups and downs. Tell me if you agree, you disagree, you've slept on it. Is it horrible as you thought when you went to bed on a late night West Coast game? Or is it even worse, more embarrassing, more sickening than you thought? Tell me what you think here on Locked On UCLA. Well, this episode is brought to you by Game Time because college football is back and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. The endless queues, the hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. You're like, oh, I found a great ticket price to go to the Rose Bowl. And you're like, or you want to go see UCLA men's basketball later this year. And you're like, oh, why is it jumping? Well, that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no, and I mean no, surprise fees. And what you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time in just a couple of taps. I saw amazing deals, and I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. College football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Well, stay tuned for more Locked On UCLA episodes. We're going to have a full grade for the entire offense. We're going to have a full grade for the defense. We're going to have full thoughts on special teams Monday. Maybe some more things we missed on Tuesday. We will talk to Chris Johnson later this week to get a breath of fresh air. UCLA basketball, yes, that's soon on the horizon. So stay tuned for all that and more on Locked On UCLA. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.